Okay, we're recording.
Good evening, everybody, and I'm Helena. I'm one of the teaching assistants in the data analytics program, and today I'm going to introduce you to Watson Analytics program that you're going to be using for the remaining assignments in the course. So let's go ahead and get started. Here is an agenda for today. I'm going to introduce what Watson Analytics is, and I'm going to help you to get started. And we're going to talk about the 3Ds of Watson Analytics and explain you what it is. We're going to talk about refining data, natural language questions, how to do the data visualization and some predictive models, and how we present the findings. But they're going to be the second WebEx, which will show you how to present the findings in more details. All right? So now we're moving on to the next slide. So what is Watson Analytics? Basically, it helps the business understand their data, and there is very little or no learning curve. You don't need to learn how to code, and you can just, it's very user-friendly and intuitive, right? So here is a video you can learn more a little bit on an overview of the application, right? Now, let's continue to the next slide. And here is a brief history of Watson Analytics. As one of you may or may not remember, there was a famous Jeopardy game where the computer won to human contestants, right? So in case you might be interested, here is the link where you can read more about it. And the slides will be available after the presentation. Now, all of you should have received an invitation email over the weekend. If not, please check your junk mail. After this meeting, go ahead and check your junk mail. The invitation email looks like this, like what you see on the slide, and it has accept invitation blue button. You need to click on it, or you can also copy and paste the link at the bottom of the email into your browser, and you need to activate your account. On the next page, you're going to see a form where you have to fill out your first name, last name, and so on, right? So now, this is the UMUC, and this is my last name, Betinskaya, so that's the name of the subscription, right? And here you see my email address. So whenever you run into technical problem, please contact either myself or your TA before calling IBM. Most of the issues we can resolve internally, right? Now, let me continue to the next slide. This is very important step, very important. All of you are required to take an introduction to Watson Analytics course, 101 course. To do that, you're going to go to the Big Data University webpage. You're going to register, right? An account is free. You need to register to enroll in the course. Now, after you're done with the course, you need to download the certificate, completion certificate, and upload it to assignment folder. This course is self-paced. You may view the video more than once, but keep in mind that there is one and only one attempt to pass the course. When you take in the test, make sure that you're in an area with good internet connection, because once you launch the course, the time starts. Even if you get disconnected, the time continues, right? And the final test has 1 hour test limit. And the only way to retake the test is to log in as another user. Now, very important, I'm going to repeat it again today. Avoid using the browser back button, especially when you're taking a test. Just pretend that it's not there, all right? And also, in addition to the test at the end of the course, there is also a self-review questions at the end of each unit. Those are also part of the grade, but they're timeless, right? You can take time you want. And for each multiple choice questions, you get 2 attempts. Now, very important, make sure that you check in all answers, right? When you answer the question, make sure to click on the final check. Otherwise, you're not going to get count, right? Now we're gonna move on. So this is a login page, right? You only access Watson Analytics through the email that I sent you just once. You only need to accept the invitation only once, right? So this is a web page that you might want to bookmark. And when you enter this web page, this is sign in. This is where you click to get to the login page. Here, your IBM ID is your email address where you got your invitation, and you're gonna enter the password. The password is the one that you create at the time when you accept an invitation, right? And you may need to remember that password is case sensitive. If you lost your password, not a big deal. We have a forgot password, and I believe you have instructions for password reset in the classroom. Now, if you already had an account on my subscription, either from last semester, right, probably, then your login name is the same and all your work is saved. I made sure that if you already had an account on my subscription, all your work is saved. And if you need an assistance with logging back in, so do not hesitate to ask for help. Now, here is how the landing page is going to look like when you log in for the first time, right? You have three tiles: data, discover, display. Now, this is a workflow. Remember, we upload the data, we may make some refinements. Now we're going to do discover, we're going to do some analysis to our data, we're going to build the model. Display is basically we're going to present our findings. Here is a list of files that you have added, right? Now notice that if I have data active, here is a list of my data set that I have uploaded to my folder. Now look at this, and I'm going to show it to you when we get into application, when we get into hands-on part. But there are two folders, personal and shared. Personal area has all the files that belong only to you. Only you or somebody with an admin role like myself will be able to see what's in your personal folder. And I'm going to show you these options, what they mean, the sorting and toggle between layouts. We'll get to it, but what I did here, very important, right? Very important. Remember this picture. Do not use the browser back button. One of the reasons some people have been reporting the issues over the last semester is because they were using the browser back button. Avoid it, right? You want to use the menu at the top of the screen, right? Just pretend that this button does not exist, right? So this is the first tip of the night. Do not use the back button. Now, and I'm going to switch to an application and I'll show you the help menu. Basically, Watson Analytics has a very nice help menu, and the link is available on all screens. You can read the documentation on different parts like importing data, creating visualizations, and more. And there are also helpful videos that you would really enjoy. Now, here are the 3 Ds, and I'm going to show you more in details, but what you would want to keep in mind is that this is a workflow. First, we upload the data. Then we do some explorations to our data, right? And then we have to present the findings. And we're going to cover XSpid storybooks in next WebEx, right? Because I realize it's a lot of topics for a single WebEx. So now we're going to get back to, I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to get into an application. So you can see that I have done some work in here, right? I have done some work. So here you're not going to see other users. It's only available for the admins, right? So other users, it's all of you guys, right? As an admin, I can access all of your folders. Here, this is my personal folder. Those are the work that I have, right? Anything that I have created. And this is the shared folder. We're going to discuss the details about the shared folder in the next WebEx, but one thing that I want you to remember is that I do not want you to save anything in the root of the shared folder, right? anything that you save has to be in your personal area, or later in the course, you're going to have a subfolder for your study group. Later in the course, you're going to see the folder for the session that you're enrolled in, and inside the sessions are going to be the subfolders based on the session you're registered in and based on your team membership, right? So that's coming. But everything saved at the root of the shared folder will go where? In the trash can, right? So now we're gonna go back to personal folder here. So this is the work that I have done. Those are all data files that I have. And I have an option. I can arrange it as a tiles, or I can do it like this as a list, right? So that's an option. And I can sort my data based on the name, right? I can alphabetize it by name, or I can change it, I can sort it based on the date when I loaded the data, and I can sort it based on the data quality score and explain you what that is. And here is the file format, right? So that tells me if the original data was in a CSV, or if I got the data from the Twitter, or if the data came from the database. Don't worry about it for this course, but in general, you can load data from the database. All right, so now we're going to go over what? Importing data, right? That's my first style. To import the data, of course, you're going to click on New Data, right? New Data. Now I have options. I have sample data. When I click on the style sample data, here are the built-in Watson data sets that come from data analytics. And you can read more about each data set in the use cases, right? So for instance, see this American Time Use Survey? What I could do here, I can click on it, and I can click on import. This data will be added to my personal area, right? If I selected the personal, right? Oh, because that has to do, see, because I sorted the data by name, this is where it's put. Processing. Now, what processing means is that Watson Analytics is looking into the field names in my data set. It's looking at the relationships between the fields, and it's trying to find the patterns, right? And I'll explain to you more when we get to the refining data. Now, that's one way to import the data. Another way to import the data is from your hard drive. So what I do here is that I have a data in here in my Excel spreadsheet, and this is an interesting data set that we're going to look at today. So the whole idea is I have the student's information, and my goal is to predict if my student is at risk of academic failure and to determine what are the risk factors of academic failure. So I have a geographic area, and I've got the number of absences, and I have the class hours, I have the student health, and so on. So here's my data. One thing I want you to note here is that the spreadsheet has two tabs, and I only want to load the first tab, right? It has two tabs. Okay, so now let's go ahead and let's try to add my data. I'm going to click New Data, right? And this time I want to load it from the local file. And what I want you to notice here is that I don't have any totals and subtotals. I need to make sure that I don't have empty columns, that I don't have empty rows, and that I have at least one numeric column, right? I want to have at least one numeric column somewhere. And in this case is a GPA, right? So now let's go back. See this? What I could do is I could browse the location where my file is stored, or what else I could do is I could find my file and watch. I just drag and drop, right? And I'm gonna click on import, right? So it's importing right now, and gonna add another tile. Basically, right now when I say processing, it's looking at the variable. It's looking for variables. Aha, here we go. I got a pop-up. I'll explain you what it means. As you may remember, my spreadsheet has two tabs, right? Watson Analytics gives me a choice, which tab I want to import. right? I want to do the first one. Speaking of the tabs, I need to point it out. On a test, right, on a course that you're taking, keep in mind that at the time when the course was created, Watson Analytics just picked up the first tab. If the spreadsheet had more than one tab, it just picked up the first tab by default. After the course content was created, there was an enhancement. Now you have a choice to choose which tab you want to import. But for the test purposes, the first tab gets imported, right? For the real use, right now you have a choice. So I'm going to keep the first sheet and I'm going to hit confirm, right? So right now, it looks like it is loading. Well, connecting. Oops, it's asking me to sign in. Well, it's highly possible, and the reason is that my session may have timed out. It's possible that my session may have timed out, but when that happens, you just have to sign in. It happens. So basically, since it happened, look, this is your login page, right? This is your sign in page. Your IBM ID is an email where you receive your invitation, right? So that's what you're going to do. You're going to enter your email where you receive your invitation, and here you're going to enter your password, right? All right. And if you don't remember the password, you can that's a link where you follow. And then make sure that you're signing into your Musi Butynskaya, right? And hit continue. So there it is. And here I'm back, right? Okay. So, okay. Let me go ahead and delete this. And I see the reason I'm getting an error because I already uploaded the dataset with the same name. I already have the dataset with the same name, right? Here it is. Here it is. I got an error message because I did it on purpose. You can have only one dataset in a personal area with the same name. See this? I created the subfolder, and I already have this. This subfolder is in my personal area. See this? I already have the dataset with the same name, right? So let me move it from subfolder to my personal area. There we go, right? The reason I received an error message is because I already had this dataset with the same name. You can only import one and only one dataset with the same name, right? So that's the reason I got an error message. Now, here's my dataset, right? Let me minimize it. And see this? I reproduce that error. It does not matter that my dataset was located in a different folder, right? It does not matter. As long as I have access to it, I can have only one file with the same name. Now, here it is. So here is the data quality score. What it does is it's looking at the missing values for each column. It's going to look at the skewness, and based on that, it's going to compute the average quality score for me. Now, let's see how my data looks like. Now, here, clicking ellipsis, it's going to open up my menu, right? And my options are delete. But when you delete something, keep in mind there is no trash can, there is no recycle bin. Once it's deleted, that's it. I cannot recover it, right? Once something is deleted, it's gone forever. And also, if I delete the data, all discoveries, right, all explorations that I used to build from my data are going to become invalid, right? So now, let me open up the data. You're going to click on refine, right? That's going to open up the data. Do you remember we looked at the spreadsheet? So here are my variables, basically, right? These are my variables. Now, you want to make sure that variable names are descriptive, and I'm going to show you why when we get to the discovery. The data set is quite big, so it's showing me the first 1,000 rows, right? Now, here, I can click here. State is my variable. I can click on my variable name. Now, here, I can view the properties, right? Properties. And it's going to tell me the data type, and the type is a text. And for right now, looks like it's count distinct. Well, it's because the variable is categorical, right? And there is no sorting. And here it's asking me if I want to use this variable for prediction. And it showed me that the variable is a categorical variable. Now, for those of you who may have used Watson Analytics before, this is a new feature here. I can specify if I want to use my variable for prediction or not. Let me uncheck it and explain it to you why in a second. Now, let me close this out. Take a look at it. This variable has a single value, right? All the states are in New York. Every single record here has only value is New York, right? Does this variable provide any values for my analysis? I don't think so, right? So I want to exclude it, right? I want to exclude it. How do I do this? All right, when I click here, right, I expand the menu. Here is a list of my variables that my data has, right? When a variable is selected, it means I'm including it for analysis, right? To unselect it, I just unchecked, right? And when I unchecked it, the variable is gone, right? The variable is not going to appear in my analysis that for which I use this data. And the reason I excluded because it's just New York. I don't have any more locations besides New York. It has no value, right? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click here to save it. Right now I'm just saving it, right? I'm not doing anything else, just saving. And you see this little globe? It means that Watson Analytics is working. Very important, do not do this, right? Do not click on the back button. At any time, if I feel like I need to return to my landing page, I can click on this logo, right? Clicking the logo will get me back to the landing page. How do I return to the data that I had open? Everything that I have open will show up in the menu. Look at this. I click here. Here is the data that I had open. There is no need to click the browser back button. You can just click here, right? You click here, and it's going to take you back to the data that you're working on, right? So here it is. Now let me show you what else we can do. Is we can filter out by class size perhaps. So here it's a categorical variable. I see the ranges, right? So what I could do is I can select the specific class range, right, that I want to have. And here it showed me that I selected 2 out of 6 values. Now I changed my mind. I want to select everything but these 2. To do that, I just invert, right? Now I don't want to select anything. I want to keep them all. I hit clear, right? Clear removes the filter. Now here to scroll, I can scroll down to see my additional variables. So here is overall GPA, right? And the student cost, a number of absences, and the club membership, and more, right? So here, what I can do, and see that this is a county, right? So that's a student location and a change in GPA. And here, this is going to be my target variable. It determines if a student is at risk. Target variable is a variable that I want to predict, right? It's a variable that I want to predict. Some books call it the dependent variable also, right? The remaining variables are input variables, right? So let me go ahead and save the changes that I did, and I'm going to show you more. I'm going to show you the data quality score. Now, while it's saving, do not be tempted to hit the browser back button. I realize that it's tempting, but we need to wait for it to. Now I'm going to click here. Here is the data quality score, right? Here, country, these are unique values. This is a unique identifier, right? So that's another reason you want to exclude the variable. because it doesn't, it just uniquely identifies its record, right? It has no value for analysis in this case, right? Now, here it's giving me the quality score. Take a look at this. Why do I have the top quality score here, 80%? Because my distribution is not as skewed, right? The more skewed my distribution is, the lower the data quality is. Like, see, for example, here, I have vast majority of values are yes, and only few are no. English speaking, so distribution is really skewed because I only have few no values, and most of the values are yes, right? So when the distribution is skewed, the data quality score seems to be lower. Missing value is basically unknown value. The value is not specified. We don't have any in this case, right? But if you had them, we had several options. We could exclude the record, or we could do some data pre-processing before uploading into Watson Analytics. We can fill in the value with a mean, right? But we would have to do probably in Excel, because currently Watson Analytics does not support this capability. See this here, this is a numeric variable, and you notice that the distribution is close to normal, so it has a high quality, right? Because mainly it's looking at the distribution here and the presence or absence of missing values. Here, 100% quality because you have a private public and approximately the same number of data rows with each value. Here is another one. It's an option is you can choose to sort data on a certain variable. Here I'll show it when we get to the analysis. I'll show it what it means, right? When we get closer to analysis. It's how you can aggregate the data on this column. For instance, I can do the average hours, I can do the total hours, I can do the minimum, maximum. We'll get to it. Now, to close the menu, you will just tap on this button, right? There are additional things that you can do is you can build hierarchies or you can build data groups. Data groups basically allows to combine the values of discrete variables into groups, or you can also do the binning. You can divide you can split the numeric variables into ranges, right? And by the way, if you look at the data quality score, some of the variables are skewed, right? So your option, you can have an option, you can create the data group, and you can group some of the values into a single category. Like for instance, right here, perhaps, right? You can group the last 2 quarters, right? Into a single category. That's one option that you have to improve the data quality. Or even right here, right? You can group the categories right here at the end, right? You can group them all in one. That's one way you can deal with this. And same thing, AP tests passed, right? You can have 0 and you can have more than 1 in another category, right? So let's go ahead and create the data group. Basically, creating data group means creating a new column. So let's pick something that we might be interested in. Let's pick a variable. I can do AP test, right? So to do that, I'm going to click here, and I'm going to create the data group right here, right? Here, I'm going to say AP test range. So that's the name of my new variable. And I'm going to click here, and I'm going to find my variable in the list, right? So I can search here. See here, this AP test passed. And for some reason, Watson Analytics thinks that my variable is, it thinks that my variable is numeric, right? Because I didn't change the variable properties. So let's close this out and let's cancel for right now. And I'm going to click here on my variable, watch what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna click here, and I'm gonna do the properties, and I want to change to select values. I want to make this variable categorical, right? Type, I'm okay with numbers. This is numeric, but I wanted to do the select variable. And for the aggregation, let's keep it as is. Let's see what happens, right? So I change it. I change it to select values rather than continuous number. Now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna say create data group, right? And I'm going to select my variable AP test passed. Now what I can do is I'm going to call my variable AP tests range. And what I'm gonna do is I want to add a group, right? I want to add one group, and I'm gonna call it 0. I'm gonna call it 0, right? And what I'll do is I'm going to move 0. I'm going to select 0, right? And add this. Oops. For some reason, it placed all 4 items into my group. That's not what I want. So let me add a new group, and let's see what happens. And I'm gonna call it above 0, right? And I'm gonna click OK. So now I'm going to edit here, and I'm going to, oh, here it is. I have to click on items groups. I'm going to edit, and I'm going to drag. See this? It has 4 items. It's not what I want. So I have to select an item. I have to select an item and delete. Oops. Yep. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to, well, by default, for some reason, what it did was it assigned all my 4 items in the first group. That's not what I want, so I hit delete, right? Now what I want to do, I'm gonna click. What I'm gonna do here is I'm going to drag and drop, right? I'm going to do this. I'm going to, for some reason, it's not letting me. So, okay. So let's see. Okay, let's close this out. There we go. Oops, no luck today. All items are grouped. So let's do this. So here it says 0 items, right? So what I want to do is, see, this is a test passed, right? And the whole idea, I wanted to add each value. I wanted to add each value of this variable into a group, right? So for some reason it's not cooperating with me today, but this is how you would do it. You would just drag and drop, okay? You would just drag and drop. And for some reason it moved all 4. Oh, I see. It's because the variable is numeric. I should have changed the variable to categorical. So anyhow, this is how you would do it. You would just drag and drop. So here are my 2 groups, and you would just drag and drop the values, okay? Now what I'm gonna do, I just delete this, and let me delete this, and let me hit cancel. Let me hit cancel. That's not what I want to do, right? That's not what I want to do. So now let's do this. Let's do the numeric variable as an example. So I pick the class hours. I'm going to click here, and I'm going to do the class hours, right? I'll do the search. Here it is. And this variable is numeric, right? So by default, it's going to divide this into 5 bins. And I'm going to do class hours bin, right? I'm going to do class hours bin. And I hit create, hit done. So what it did was it added the new variable, right? It added the new variable. Close this out. It added it to the end, right? Here it is. That's my new variable that I just added, right? What it did was it did, that's called an equal width binning, because what it did, it made the bins of equal width. It doesn't matter how many observations, how many data rows have a value in each interval. Okay, that's what I did. Now I'm going to go ahead and save this. Save this as saving, right? But the whole idea about the categorical variables is that you want to create two groups and you want to drag and drop each value into a group, right? It's because it's still numeric, that's why I should have changed the data type. But anyhow, what we're gonna do now is, now suppose that I don't want this variable to be used in my analysis. So what I'll do is I go here and I can search, right? I can search here and I'm just going to uncheck this. And I'm going to save it again, right? Now, there is something that I cannot do. See this button? Does it exist? It does not exist anymore. While I'm doing the work in Watson Analytics or any cloud environment, the back button does not exist, right? So now we're going to close the file. That's a good habit to close the file when you're done editing. And it's still updating. All right. So when it's going to be finished updating, and then we're going to move on to the Discovery tab. Right. Now it's done, right? So now I can either go to Discovery and click New Discovery. So that's how my Discovery tab looks like. And here are all my models that I already built. Now, again, here you have the layout options, right? I can do tile or I can do list. And here are the sorting options, right? Here I have the Discovery workbook name, the date when I modified it, and I have the ellipses. When I click on the ellipses, it gives me options. Now, remember this. When you delete something, that's it. It's gone. It is gone. Even admin, even me, I cannot restore it, right? So whenever it's deleted, there is no recycle bin. Remember that. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back to the Data tab. I'm going to click on Students. Do you remember when data was importing? Watson Analytics did some analysis, and it was trying to pick up the relationships between my variables, right? So now, where do you think this comes from? Based on the analysis when the data was imported, Watson Analytics presents something that I might be interested to explore, right? So I could explore the cost by the country, I could explore the predictive model for class hours, and so on. But what I'm really interested is the course risk, right? What drives the risk? This is what I'm interested in. So let's go ahead and pick it now. When I click on this, a new Discovery workbook will open. And this is the first tab, right, because it's a new workbook. Here is a spiral. And a spiral is going to have a pin for each driver. So driver is independent variable or a combination of independent variables that determine if the student is at risk. So now, risk is a categorical variable, right? That's something to keep in mind as well, and you'll see it later on during the demo. Now, as you notice that, so here we have two columns. This is a driver, and this is how strong my predictor is. Notice that? What is the first risk factor of the academic failure? Is absences, right? When students skip classes. Here, it's a combination of absences and a class membership, and a club membership, right? So perhaps some student might be missing classes and doing the club work, right? It's possible. So now, this is a pin here. The closer the pin to the core, the stronger is the predictor. If I hover on top of the pin, it's giving me the predictor, the driver, and it also giving me the predictive strength. In this case, it's 84%, right? The spin that I selected. What I need to do here is that I can click on View More. If I click on View More, it's going to show me more details. Well, apparently, the predictive strength is really close, so the pins overlap, right? What I could also do is, I want to see the details on my absences. Take a look. I can click on the plus sign, and a new tab will open. And here, I'm going to see the distribution of absences where the student is at risk and not at risk, right? So it's showing me that 30% of students who might be, see this? The 30% of students with 4 or more absences seem to be at risk, right? So here, this is a 100% bar, right? Here. Well, but see this? Apparently absences could be important risk factor, right? What I could also do is, let me see if perhaps gender has an impact. Does it? What I could do here is that I could find the gender variable in here, gender, and basically what I want to do is I want to see a separate chart like this for males and for females. Look what I can do. This is a relatively new functionality called multiplier. So what I do is I click on my gender and I drag and drop. Right? Now I see a chart for gender, female and male. And is the difference really significant? Well, I cannot see much difference for 4 or more absences. The gender doesn't really make much difference, does it? Well, little bit. If it's a number of absences between 1 to 4. And here, well, it's about the same, close. Now, I can have more than one tab in the same discovery workbook, but it's very easy to lose track of what am I doing. So here, what I could do is I can click here, and I can rename it. And let's say I'm gonna do this absence by gender. Right? I renamed it. Now what I could do, I can navigate back to my first tab, and I'm gonna click here, and I'm gonna rename it as risk drivers. Right? Now, and I have to save it. Now here, look, I only renamed the tabs, right? I did not save the workbook. I have to save my workbook. So to do that, I click here. Now, where I want to save, very important, save all your work in the personal area. Later on, we're going to discuss the group work. But for right now, save your work in the personal area. So now here we want to enter the name of the discovery, and let me go ahead and I'm going to name it as risk factors, right? I'm going to name it as, let's name it as academic failure risk factors, right? So here it is, and I'm going to save it in my personal area. And let me go ahead and click save, right? I click save. Now it's saved, and see here my name, the name of this discovery appears over here. Note that this panel, what Watson Analytics does is based on my current visualization, it's going to decide what other visualizations I might be interested at, right? For instance, it might think I want to look at the GPA, or I want to look at the absences by athlete, and so on, and I can scroll and pick more, right? And this is dynamic because when I click here, my visualization is different, and the suggested discoveries are different, right? So what drives this is the current discovery I'm at. If you may remember earlier today, I said that we have to keep the variable names descriptive. The reason is, what is this? This is a variable name, right? On the other hand, if I call it XYZ, I would have no clue what my X is and what my Z is. It would be unclear to me what Watson Analytics is trying to tell me to do. This related visualization would not make sense. For instance, it would say something like X and Z instead of visits and absences, right? So that's one reason you want to make sure all your variables are descriptive. Now, notice this area here. This is called the data tray. And you can also define the filters at this level. However, keep in mind that any filters defined at this area will apply only to this visualization, right? It will apply only to this visualization. It will not apply to other visualizations that I build from the same data set. So now, if I click over here, see this? I have something similar to what I saw in the refinement view. I can uncheck my variables, and yet I can add the calculation is basically nothing but a new column. It's nothing but a new variable. Yeah. For instance, I can create a variable that adds 0.1 to everybody's GPA. I'm just making it up, right? So let's close this out for right now. Now, what else I could do here? See this? It opened up the data preview, right? It opened up the data preview, and I have the same options that I had in the refine view. But keep in mind, any changes that I make here will apply only to this visualization, right? Now to close it, I'm going to minimize this. So I've got two tabs, right? Here, what you could also do is you can change how my visualization looks like. I click on the format. Here I can show or hide the title. I can show or hide the details, so that's this line. I can change the indentation of my title. Here I have an option if I want to show the grid, and if I want to show the access titles, and if I want to show the legend, and where I want to show the legend. So you may notice that on some slides I chose to show it on the left, right? So I have this option here, and if I scroll down further, see this? I can change the appearance of my graph, right? So let's keep it as is, and I can change my colors right here. I can change the colors, and I can change the numbers, right? How the numbers show. In this case, it's the percentages. Now, the options that I get here are dynamic. They depend on the visualizations that I choose. They depend on the visualization. What I also could do is, see here, I see the list of suggested suggested exploration. This list can be opened and closed just by clicking here. I can also change variables. See this? When I click here, it opens up the pick list, right? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on New tab here. That opens up the new discovery. Now I'm looking through this. And I don't see what I want, right? What I want to do is I want to build the decision tree model for the risk. If I'm not sure how to ask my question, I can just click here. See this? There are different choices. There are different question categories, like the values of, and here the breakdown of. So basically, what you can do is you can choose any of this category and play around with the suggested questions, or you can just type it in. Let me just type risk and see what happens. Let me just do this, risk, and hit enter, and let's see what's gonna happen. Now, I'm gonna close this panel. Here it is. Now, what is a predictive model for risk? This is what I want. I want to have my decision tree. Risk is going to be the target variable, right? So I'm going to click on this. Now, since I already had the workbook open, right, it's going to add a new tab to this workbook. I want to point out a few things here. This is a categorical variable. So there are two values, at risk or not at risk. Here I have a drop down. I can look at the cases or at the profiles of the students who are at risk for academic failures, or I can look at the profiles of the students who are not at risk. I can toggle in between. Over the last maintenance window, Watson Analytics team, they made a lot of enhancements to the decision tree interface. If you may have used this application earlier, this toggle between decision rules and decision tree was moved to here. So now the visualization of the tree became much easier, and I'll show you what I mean. There are more options as well. Now, let's look at the first rule. We're looking at the risk factors, right? What drives the students at risk? Who is at risk for academic failures? What it shows me here is that a student has more than 4 absences, a student missed more than 4 classes, is at risk, 100% at risk, and there are 74 students in my data set who missed 4 classes. Those students are more likely at risk, right? Here, I would say the students who missed 1 to 4 absences, who don't have any club membership, and here are the rest of the conditions, right? Here are the rest of the descriptions of the profile of those students. Those students are, it's a 79%, right, risk factor. And here, it's telling me how many students fall into this category. So basically, I want to predict if my student is at risk based on existing students' profiles, right? So I have an existing student profiles where I know if my student is at risk. And I want to use this profile, this data, to determine if my new student is at risk, right? Suppose that I have a new student who missed 4 courses, more than 4 courses. More likely the student is going to be at risk for academic failure. There is no guarantee, but there is a high possibility here based on my model. What else I could do here? Right now, it's showing the dominant value, right? Over here, it's showing blue color code because at risk is a dominant value. Now, if I hover, it's showing me that out of these 226 students, 79% are at risk of academic failure, right? And the remaining 21% are not at risk, right? So it's breaking down the percentages for me. I have an option in here. I have an option. I can show the percentages. See this? The blue color code stands for at risk, and green color code stands for not at risk. This is an option right now. I can see mode. Mode means the dominant value. If you may remember from statistics, mode is a dominant value. I can use the color code that shows the mode, right, the most dominant value in this group, or alternatively, I can show the percentages, right, for each category. And I can scroll down. I can also sort this by predictive category, right? I can also sort this. Oh, look at this. Here, this is a student profile. I have 147 students in this profile, and those students are not at risk, apparently, right? So this is a profile of students who not at risk of the academic failure. Isn't that nice? So if you don't miss any courses, right? And here, well, it still shows the club membership greater than 0, but mainly absences play a significant role. in this case. What I could also do, I could swap. I can see not at risk, right? I can toggle. Now I can minimize this panel just to have a better view, right? And I can also visualize my decision tree. I can go to tree. This is my tree. What I could do here, I could click on the nodes to collapse the tree. Now, here I'm using my mouse to scroll. I'm using the mouse pad to scroll, and I can collapse my nodes. And now I have to scroll again, and I can collapse, and I can collapse. Now, what was added recently is, see this plus sign? I use the plus sign to zoom in. I use the minus sign to zoom out. Plus sign zoom in, minus sign zoom out, and this will usually show me the entire tree, right? What I could do is, I could expand, and clicking on here is going to show me the entire expanded portion of the tree, right? This will show you the entire expanded portion of the tree. Then I can zoom in again, right? It's a really nice tree view, isn't it? And I can expand and collapse and so on. Now, I have another option here. I can toggle. I can show the dominant value, or I can show the distribution here, right? I can do that. I can toggle here. See this? For this node, if I hover over the node, it's giving me how many people fall into this category and a number of a number of people who are at risk and who are not at risk. And to read the tree, we're going to start here. This is a root node, right? And let me collapse this and zoom in. Now, we start from this node. Right here is all my data. And if I hover, it shows me how many students I have at risk and not at risk in the data set. And vast majority of students is not at risk, right? Now, the first splitting variable is absences. And if you may recall, right, it was the most significant predictor, right? The risk driver in here. Absences, right? Same thing. See this? Now, what it's looking at the data record, and it's asking, is the number of absences greater than 4? If yes, it takes this pass. If the number of absences less than 1, yes, then it takes this pass. If the number of absences between 1 and 4, it takes this pass, right? Then I can hover over my node. It's going to tell me a percentage of, it tells me how many people fall into this node, right? To how many people this node applies, right? In this case, it's 2,726, right? So this is 44% of the population that I'm analyzing. And then it shows me how many percent are at risk and not at risk out of those 2726. Now, this is a club membership, is my next criteria. So here, basically, if a person is a club member, then we take this pass. If the person does not belong to any club, we take this pass. And we keep on traversing the tree until we reach the very end. And the very end of the tree is called the leaf node. And when we get to the last splitting point, when we get to the leaf node, the value of our target variable, if the student is at risk or not at risk, is a dominant value at that leaf node. Like, for example, this node is a leaf node because there is no more splitting, right? The dominant value is at risk. We would do the same thing for the remaining nodes, right? We would do the same thing for the remaining nodes. Like, see, like right here, this is a leaf node. I would have to hover, right? So we look at this node, and most of the students that fall, see, we have 107 students that fall into this node. And out of those 107 students, 73% of students are not at risk. So basically, if we are going to traverse a tree starting from the left, and if we end up at this leaf node, more likely we are not at risk, right? So here I can also toggle, right? As I mentioned area, I can toggle, and I can go back to my decision rules, right? Remember, zoom in. Alternatively, you can use mouse pad, or you can use, if you're using the mouse, you can scroll, right? You can use the scrolling wheel. Now, what else? This is another new functionality. I click on analysis. When I click on analysis, I'm going to see the statistical details for my data. So this is currently available only for decision trees. Here, it's giving me the summary. It's showing me that this is a number of data rows that was used for my analysis. And here, it's showing me the importance of each predictor. Now, let me explain what's happening. Behind the scene, secretly behind the scene, Watson Analytics is building a logistic regression model for me. It's a logistic regression because the dependent variable risk is categorical, right? So if I had the numeric variable, it would have been a linear regression. Here is a logistic regression model, and here these variables are important drivers of the risk. Those are important considerations. Here are least important, right? If this value here is less than 0.01, here it's listing me the least important. Interestingly, student GPA and gender is least important. Oh, now do you remember gender? It listed here as least important. And what did I show you a few minutes ago? Did we look at this? Did we look at risk by absences by gender? Didn't we look at this? Now, notice that if I select this visualization, analysis is not available. So at this point, it's only available for the decision tree, so something to remember. Now, I'm going to scroll down. This is important. This is very important. This is called it's called classification table, but in some regions you may find it as a confusion matrix. This compares the actual values with the predicted values. So here, I predicted that my student is at risk, and the student is actually at risk. I have 549 students who are predicted at risk and are actually at risk. I have 442 students who I predicted not at risk, but they are at risk. Here, I have 289 students. I determined that they are at risk, but they're actually not, right? And so on. Here, it shows me the percentage of correct predictions for at-risk category, and here, not at risk, right? And here, it's just going by the row, right? It's showing me how many actual at-risk students were predicted correctly. Now, to determine the overall accuracy of prediction, this is what I need to do. I have to take the numbers on a diagonal from top left to bottom right. I would have to take these two numbers, add them, and divide them by the sum of all numbers in the matrix. Notice that the number of correct prediction lies on a diagonal. Look, predicted at risk, actual at risk. Predicted not at risk, actual not at risk, right? So how do I get 88% here? I have to take the sum on the diagonal, right here, and divide it by the total. That's what it's doing, basically. It will make more sense when you do some readings. Here, it's basically showing me the field transformation. So behind the scene, Watson Analytics may discretize some of the numeric variables, right? Like, for instance, if you look at it, right here, if you look at it, you would have to look at how it split when the splitting variable is numeric, right? Notice how it's doing the splitting for me. So let me try to zoom in. See this? That's a GPA. Here's a good example. Notice this, the GPA variable, right? The GPA variable. It's split into two categories, right? The first branch is GPA is less than 2.91, and the second category is above 2.91, right? So that's what it's saying here, that it took my GPA variable and it did equal frequency binning. Equal frequency means that it took approximately the same number of students into each category. 316, well, not quite, but basically when you say equal frequency, it will attempt to do the approximately equal number of observations. It will attempt to do it. It might not always be possible, but it will attempt, right? And here, it just showing me the rest of the variables right here, that it was binning for me. But binning, take a look at this, the class hours, it's splitting less than or equal to 42 or greater than 42. I never specified how to split. It's doing the internal binning for me. Now, let me close this. And let me go ahead, and I'm going to rename this. I'm calling it a 3. I'll just call it a 3. And I'm going to save this. Save. Now, remember to go back to the landing page. I'm going to need to click here. Right? Right now, this workbook is still open. Very important. If I was going to log out, I would have to close it. Well, if it just in your personal area, no problem. You just save the data. You come back. When you go back in, it's gonna be here. No problem. However, we're gonna get to it later on. If you're sharing it, if it's in a shared area, and if you're sharing it with your teammates, they might not be able to edit it if you still have it open, right? Now, what we could do is we're gonna do the display, right? So we did some models. Well, to start with, we loaded the data. We did some refinement, right? Refined the data. We built some models. The next step is to present our findings. For today, I'm just going to do the dashboard. Next time, we're going to look into the storybooks. But for today, I'm just going to do the dashboard. So how to do that? I'm going to click on the new display. I'm going to select dashboard, right? And I'm going to say create. Okay, so that's going to be creating a multi-tab dashboard. In here, I have an option for the layout. Let me take this one of my favorites, right? Let me take this one. What I can do now is, I have multiple options here. I can add the existing model that I just built. I can create a new model. I can add the widget. Basically, I can add the shapes, I can add text, I can add my images, anything I like, right? But for right now, let me add the models that I built. So I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna click on Discoveries, right? Here, well, here you will see the shared and the personal. You're not going to see other users, because other users is only for administrators. But you will see personal, right? So this is going to be, in your case, it's going to be your work. And here, something to keep in mind is here, oops, this is a subfolder. This is a subfolder inside my personal. I want to minimize it, right? I want to go to personal. So see here, this is a hierarchy here. This is a hierarchy of subfolders. Now, I have to scroll down all the way, and it's going to show me all of the discoveries that I have, right? If you look at this, so here basically it's showing me all of the discoveries that I have. All of this, right? And each discovery has a bunch, it has more than one tab, right? So in order to see I have to expand it. See this? My discovery workbook that I just created has multiple tabs. I would have to expand it. This is what I just created. I just created a workbook with 3 tabs. And what I want to do right now is I want to add these discoveries to my display, right? I'm ready to present it to my manager. So look at this. I click here. I just drag and drop. Now pay attention. I want to put my mouse on top of the errors, right? Because I want my visualization to perfectly fit this canvas, right? Now what I'll do, same thing, I'm going to select this, which I'm going to drop this. And same thing with the tree. I'm going to select this and I'm going to drop this. A discovery can have more than one tab, right? A discovery can have more than one tab. To add another tab, I would just click here, right? And suppose that I want the full, and let me add the tree here. Let me just add this. So now I have 2 tabs, right? And here, I'm going to name it as a tree only. I have to click, and I'm going to say rename tree only, right? And here, let me click here, and I'm going to name it as tree and more, right? Now, here I've got 2 tabs, and this tab has 4 visualizations, 3 rather, right? I have an option here. I can put something else. I can put the. Oops. What did I do? What did I just do? I told you not to do this, right? I'm bad, right? I just broke the rules. I used the back button. I accidentally used the back button, and you saw an error message, right? So, you see what happens? Now, I'm going to click on widgets here, and what I'm going to do is, if I want to display my shape, for instance, I can just drag and drop, right? I'm just illustrating what I can do. I can just drag and drop. Here it is, right? And I can go ahead if I want to. I can just change the colors and so on. Let me minimize this. Now, dashboard has 2 modes. It has an edit mode and it has a view mode. Edit mode, it means that it's editable, like I was doing now. I was adding new discoveries, and I'll show you the filters. I can add filters and so on. On the other hand, I can swap it to the view mode. See this eyeglasses? I click on the eyeglasses. Right now my discovery is in a view mode. I cannot make any changes to it, right? I cannot. What to do to make changes to it? I would have to click on the pencil to put it back into the edit mode. Now what we'll do is we'll save it. We're going to save it. Now remember, we have to save it in a personal area, anywhere. I can save it in any subfolder, but it has to be now in my personal area, and I'm gonna call it Academic Failure Dashboard. Right? And let me go ahead and save this. So I created my dashboard, right? So that's an initial version. Now, let me show you something about filters. Right now, I'm in the edit mode, right? I can edit it. I can click on my individual visualization. I can click here, right here, and this will open something similar to the discovery window. This is something similar to the discovery window. I can change the format. I can view analysis if it's available for this visualization, and I can change visualization type. I can click and change my variables and so on. Let me close this out. And click out again to minimize this. Something else to keep in mind here, I can define my filters. I can create a filter that will apply to all tabs in the workbook, And I can create a filter that applies only to the current tab, right? To the tab that I have selected. To define the filter, what I do is I click on the filter here, and then one way to do it is to just drag and drop, right? So for instance, suppose that I want to filter on English speaking. What I'll do here is I'm going to drag and drop. Now, I added the filter here, but I never defined the values, how to filter it on. I click here, okay, and now I'm gonna click Edit Values, Edit Values. I have English speaking, I can select yes or no. Let me select yes, and click Out. So now what it's gonna do is, it's going to update my visualizations, but it will only update visualizations at this tab. It did not update my visualizations on this tab. It only updated the first tab because I applied the filter at the tab level. Notice that I selected the second tab. The filter does not show here. And it does not show here because I only applied it to the first tab, right? See, I can click here to clear the filters and to delete all filters. Clear the filter will deselect the value. Clear the filter. See this? I selected, right now I selected, I want only to see English speaking people, right? If I click on this and if I do clear all filters, it did not remove the filter, it only cleared the filter criteria. It only cleared the selection criteria, which is yes, right? If I want to delete the filter, on the other hand, it will remove the filter from the filter list, right? So remember this, clearing the filter will clear the filter criteria. Deleting the filter will remove the filter, right? Now let's close this out, and we have to save it. Remember to always save this, always save the work. I need to show you something else on this toolbar. This is a new functionality. Now it shows you how many days we have left on the subscription, and it expires on August 17th, 2017. So until then, you all have access, right? And even when the class ends, you will have access until the subscription expires. And later on, I'll have more details. But here, this opens up the helps menu, and believe it or not, you have a very rich documentation. And it's the best documentation because they keep it up to date. You can look at the getting started tutorials, and you can look, see, they even break it down by the topic. And I can click on the data, and it's going to show me how to get started with data. And I even have some videos in here also. See this? I have a bunch of sub pages, and I can watch my videos, and I can read. And I think this is really useful. You will find this really useful, as long as some, and also some guides in the classroom, right? You will find it useful. And if you're like me, if you learn by doing, I would strongly recommend to do the practice posted in the classroom, the practice guides, right? So let me go back. So help link is available everywhere. I don't need to use my browser back button. Every time when you try to use the back button, remember the error that I reproduced today, right? Now, to go back to the dashboard, I have two options. I can click here, select this, right? Or I can just click on Watson Analytics logo, right? So remember this, personal, that's where you save your files, right? Right now it's just personal. Anything that gets saved on the root folder at the root level will be deleted. See this? Somebody is not good. Somebody is breaking the rules. So Elena, she's gonna delete it, right? Elena is gonna do this. Elena is gonna do this. And the file owner is going to call me. Somebody tonight disobeyed the rules. See this? Everything that's in here will be deleted without notice, right? So somebody today is gonna call me, right? Watch. Watch. I mean it. Goodbye. Watch. Goodbye. Somebody is gonna call me tonight. And the reason I'm doing it is because we share, if you click here, you will see how many users we currently have in the system, right? Currently, we have 277 users, right? And that excludes people who still need to accept an invitation. So, plus we have 2 sessions that just started. Because we have that many users in the system, and because we have to share the system with other courses, there are certain rules of behavior that need to be followed. Anything saved in the wrong location will be deleted, right? So people will be calling me tonight to recover. Anyway, just keep in mind, anything that's saved in the wrong location will be either deleted or sometimes I just steal it. Sometimes I just steal it, and the owner will have to call me. All right? Now, there is no recycle bin. There is no recycle bin. Okay? So just keep it in mind. And I'm very serious. I mean when I say something, right? So now let me go back to the slides. There are some key points that I wanted to point out. So we talked about adding data. We're going to save Twitter for the next session. We're going to have another WebEx session, and we're going to do Twitter data. We're going to do the storybooks, and we're going to do sharing files. Now, this is how you import the sample data. We discussed this, right? And we talked about importing data from the local file. This is what I did, right? I imported the student at risk data from my local file. Then what we also did tonight, here I'm just talking about the file format. Every data row represents specific record. You cannot have empty columns. You cannot have totals, subtotals. Every column must have a name, and you want to make sure that the name is descriptive. I'm not going to name XYZ because I'm not going to know what my XYZ is without looking up at the cheat sheet, right? Here, refining data is basically means I'm going to add my variables, and I can add variables, I can remove variables, I can check my data quality scores, and more, right? Now, the next slide, so this is basically showing me the summary of the refined interface. And yes, I forgot to show you, you have 2 buttons, undo and redo at the top. Those are your friends. Sometimes you can undo, but it only applies when you are in the file, when you have the file open. For instance, if I deleted the column, if I remove the column by accident, right, unchecked it, I can do undo. That's fine. However, if I close the file, that's it. All the changes, all unsaved changes are lost, and all saved changes cannot be undone, right? Now let's go. So here, basically, I'm telling you to open the column properties. You just click on the column name, and here is the properties, right? Exactly what I was showing you in the application, right? This is a data quality score. Do you remember? We had a column. Data quality is 0. That's because all data rows have a single value. If the variable is numeric, the closer the distribution is to normal, the higher the score is. For the categorical variables, it's looking at the skewness, right? Like here is an example here, right? Now, here, refining the data groups. So this is the data groups. Remember, this is also called binning. And by default, the number of bins is 5, but I can always change it. And it's doing equal width by default, but I can change it. I can change the boundaries, right? But this is the default. You may also combine the categorical variables into logical group. It did not work for me today, but hopefully it will work when we do the presentation at Largo in a couple days from now. There's going to be a big Watson Analytics presentation, and you may have received the invitation. Now, next slide is you can delete the data, but see this? I purposely put this picture here. There is no recycle bin. Once you delete it, it's gone forever. You would need to re-upload it, right? Now, here is about asking questions, and let me point something else, because you may need to know it for the test. Trust me, you may need to know this. There is more than one way to ask a question. Suppose that I'm right here. I'm in this data tile. When I type my question is in here, risk. Watson Analytics is going to show all data. It's going to search all data sets that I may access. It will search all data sets that I may access. Risk students. See this banking loss events, that's another data set. But this data set has a variable called risk, right? So it's going to search everything through all data sets that I can access. And what I can access is what I have in the personal folder and what's shared with me, right? Let's click this. I can also go to the discovery page and I can type the same question, right? And it will also search all data sets that I can access, right? On the other hand, when I go to the data, and when I click here, it will only search the data set that I clicked on. So remember this. This is a very important concept. There is more than one way to ask a question. When I click on my data set to ask a question, it will only look at the data in the data set I clicked on. Let's close this. If I don't click on a specific data set and type the question right here, it will search everything that I have access to, right? Oh, in this case, this is something else. I should show you this. In the shared folder, all of you have read-only access to it. This is a folder called More Samples Data Sets. More Samples Data Sets. What I did was I uploaded some data sets that you might want to play with. Some of these data sets do not necessarily come with Watson Analytics application. Those are additional data sets that perhaps you may think about using them for the first assignment. Things like NASCAR data set. This data set is about the car values. Here is a house values, right? Kentucky house data. And I have a student retention data. And there is more. There is a patient survey. So now, to use this data, right now I'm in a More Samples data set. This is how you want to use this data. Take a look. You're going to click on ellipsis. Click on ellipsis. Then you're going to click on refine. Click on refine. And from this view, do this. Click here. You click here. No, save as. Right? Now, let me close this. Again, I'm going to repeat this. Again, here it is. More sample data sets. More sample data sets, right? I click on ellipsis of the data that I want to have, take, refine, save as. Very important. We cannot have more than one data asset with the same name, right? So let's say if it lets me keep this name. This is what I need to do right now. I selected personal because I want to save it in my personal area, and I'm gonna click save. Personal, save. That's it. If you receive an error, there is a high possibility that, number one, you already have a data set in your area that's called wine_quality. Number two, you might be trying to save it in a folder where you have view-only access, right? Number three, somebody might be trying to edit the data, which is less likely because only users with an administrative role has edit privileges for this folder. You have a view only, right? Now, let me close this data set, and I'm going to go back to slides now. Stop sharing. I want to make sure that I cover this, but this is very important. Several ways to ask questions. This is important. And here, this is what I show, different question categories. This is the spiral model, and we looked at that tonight. Remember, target variable is a variable that I want to predict, and it could be categorical or numeric, depending on the problem. If it's a numeric, behind the scene, Watson is going to do linear regression. If it's a categorical, it's going to do logistic regression. Here, this is what's going to look like for the numeric variable. This is a house value example. And instead of showing the percentages here, it's actually showing me the average value. So here, this is a profile of houses. There are 85 houses that fall into this profile. And this is the average value. Average, no, it's in the thousands. It's in the thousands. It's not in dollars. It's a $100,000, right? So it's 666 and 30, right? So the metric is in the thousands. It's not in the dollars. Don't count on it. All right, and you can also see the tree just by swapping to the rules. Right, here is a tree example, and you can hover over the node to see the average. Here is going to show the average, right? And this is basically, this is for the categorical, right? That's what we looked at. See, the statistics you get are different based on the variable type. So, right? For the categorical variables, you get different output. Here, it's basically showing you this capability, like I did. I clicked on analysis, and it gave me the confusion matrix. But remember, confusion matrix is only when the target variable is categorical. There is no confusion matrix for numeric targets, such as GPA or the house value, right? This is only for categorical variables. And here is an explanation for the confusion matrix, and you will have a copy of the slides. You will have this. This shows you additional options, like you can change the colors. Oh, and for the numeric variables, for each node you have an option to show if the value is above average or below average. Is this errors? You can show if the average value is above overall average or below overall average, right? So basically, if you're looking at the houses, the house value, you want to look at the houses that fall into this leaf node if their price is above the overall house price. And you may zoom in and zoom out, right? So you can explore these options at your leisure. And here is an alternative visualization options, the grids and tables, and there are also maps. When we do the storybook, I'm going to show you more visualization type when we do another WebEx, right? And here, just showing you how to create the display. We did that, right? And you can add the discovery, and you'll see the list of discoveries that you can access. And discovery is a multi-tab. You have to click on the arrow to list the tabs, and you're going to drag and drop one tab at a time. And this is just showing me the toolbar options. It's just showing you how to add the discovery, basically what we've talked about, right? This is going over the filters. Do you remember I can put a filter applied to all tabs, or I can apply the filter to a single tab? Because my display has multiple tabs, right? If my display has multiple tabs. This is a landing page, right? Do you remember? It's a landing page, and you have the same options, similar options. You can change, you can toggle between the tile view and the list view, and you can sort, and you can open this. You can click on the ellipses to open the menu. And remember, do you remember the picture? Recycle bin with an X on top? There is no recycle bin, right? Now, we continue. This is what's gonna happen for misbehavior. When we start to assignment 5, we're gonna get close to it. You're gonna be assigned the shared folder for your study group. But for right now, all work needs to be saved in your personal folder. Here is an example of the file that's due for deletion, right? This will be deleted because how many users do we have in the system, and with how many users do we need to share the system. So if everybody put their personal files here, we have a problem, right? Everything here is accessible to anyone. Anyone can edit it, anyone can delete it, so that's not what we want, right? So we always have rules for the reason, and the rules help everybody. Now, important tips. There is a link here, and it also be posted in the classroom. Watson Analytics does the maintenance, and usual maintenance hours are on Friday night from 8 p.m. Eastern Time to midnight, but the hours may change, but this web page lists the maintenance hours, and sometimes it's Saturday. So what I would recommend you guys to do is check that page and mark your calendar, because you would need to plan your study time accordingly, right? Do not use the system during maintenance hours, and also you want to use only supported browsers. There is a link, and you're going to get this copy of the slides. There is a link to an article with a list of supported browsers. This is a link. This is very interesting. This is a discussion forum. So when you have a question, there is a chance that someone else had this question. So this is a community forum where you want to go and you want to search by the topic. You want to see if someone else already has an answer to your question, and you may post your questions as well, right? For example, or here you see somebody had a login issue, so you're gonna see how many responses a person got, and when was the response posted, who posted it, and trust me, you can find a lot of helpful information in here. Sometimes when we run into an issue, somebody already has a solution for us, right? And also, you'll be taking the Watson Analytics course. Inside the course itself, there is also a discussion. Some people ask questions about the videos and more, right? And in fact, I answered a couple questions that people asked. So there is a discussion in the course itself, and there is a discussion forum that you might be interested in. Here, you're going to have the slides. This is a list of Watson web pages that I really like. You might like it too. The list of Watson Analytics use cases. Then there is a YouTube channel, and you can find a lot of how-to videos. That's something in addition to what you have in the classroom. And here, this is a Twitter web page. You can find people post, and sometimes people post to links to other interesting articles. And here, this is a Facebook page, right? Watson Analytics has its own Facebook page and Twitter page. Here, this is a guide. This is a link to our guide, and it has a detailed documentation, additional documentation that you might be interested in. And you have another YouTube channel. Here, I realize that a lot of people taking a class might be living in DC area, and very often I get a question how Watson Analytics is used in a government. So here is a link where you might find more about the government use. And I also added the link to statistical terms. For instance, this evening I was talking about the mode. Some of you might be wondering what a mode is, so you might be looking at the terms, right? And here is another list of use cases, and these use cases are probably not included in this page because they're relatively new. Some of them were added this year. So on my end, I keep on monitoring the resources page for the new, latest and greatest. Now, I talked for more than an hour and a half. Your turn. Questions and answers. Please go ahead and type your question in the chat. This is a perfect opportunity to ask questions. I love questions. Anybody has a question? It's a perfect opportunity. If nobody has a question, then Yelena is infamous for asking questions. Do you remember the 3Ds of Watson Analytics? Very important. 3Ds. Oh, does Watson autosave? Oh, excellent question. It's an excellent question. Yes and no. Yes and no. If you're looking, see, the question is if Watson Analytics autosaves. Yes and no. It depends on which file you're looking at. It will not autosave the date. It will not autosave the discovery. Right? Let me go back. Take a look. I'm gonna go back to my personal, right? And I'm gonna click on the discovery, just any discovery, right? And what I'll do here, I'm gonna make a change. I added the tab. Now, I'm just gonna pick something. It does not matter. I did not see this. Do you see this little asterisk here? An asterisk means that I did not save the changes. The latest change is not saved. That's the asterisk, right? It's not going to be saved. Now, when I click here, see this? It added this here. The menu, it lists me everything that I have open. Yes, it lists here everything that I have open, right? If it shows an asterisk, it means that I did not save it. Well, I can still go back to the landing page, but I need to keep in mind that I did not save it, right? I need to keep in mind that I did not save it. And take a look at it. If I just want to close it, I'm going to get a warning. And I can discard the changes, or I can save the changes, right? Now, let me go back to the slides. And I think I saw some interesting questions. Let me see. Let me see if I can view the chat. Here, chat. I saw some interesting questions. Does Watson Analytics feature SPSS? Excellent question. Excellent question. We have many data sources. So let me take a look here. I'm going to close the chat for a minute. See this? I'm going to have to be in the tab. And let's see, new data. And let me see what options I have. Do you see SPSS? Well, I do not see it, but there is more. And you would have to have an admin access to it. We're not going to do it in this class, but as an admin, what I could do as an admin, I would have to go to here. I would have to do to account setting, data connections, and I would have to create the new connection. I would have to physically create the new connection, and then I would have to check if SPSS is one of the options. That's one way to do it, right? I would have to check if it is there. If yes, then I'm good to go. If not, then it's upcoming. If not, then it's upcoming, right? Like for instance, here I can create to MySQL, I can create Oracle, and so on. Well, we are not going to do this in this course, but I'm just showing that it's possible. It's possible, right? We are not going to do it, but since we had a question, I wanted to make sure that the question is answered, right? And don't worry about this. This is for the data 650. So let's not worry about it in data 610, right? We save the best for last. So now let's go back to the landing page. Yeah, so basically, in this course, we are going to use the sample data. We are going to use Twitter. We're going to discuss it later. And we're going to use the data from your desktop, right? We're not going to use anything else, just for right now. Close this. And now I'm going to stop sharing for a second. Let me go back to the chat. And I'm checking the questions. So, hold on, let me see. Can you import? Well, yeah, that's a question about SPSS, that's right. About exporting to SPSS, that's a good question. I would have to look at the SPSS program and see if it supports Watson Analytics. Well, because basically, what's happening is that we cannot export the CSV file from Watson Analytics directly. We would have to look at the program that can read data from Watson Analytics, but we cannot export it to the local file, right? So let's see if we have more questions. Oh, if I accidentally click the back button, can I return to the previous page? Well, that's a good question. I like this question. There is no answer. You may or may not. Who knows? You may or may not. But the best thing to do is forget that the back button exists. All right? Well, when you click on it, just find out. Well, there is a high possibility that you may lose the changes, or there is a high possibility of getting an error, something went wrong, right? Remember, I got an error. It's because of bad habit. For all cloud applications, whether it's Watson Analytics or if it's another cloud, Bluemix, right? Forget that the back button exists. That's not good, right? And I'll be sharing more rules with you when we do another WebEx, right? We're gonna do another WebEx on sharing files on storybooks and on Twitter data. That's gonna be week 8, something like that. Yes. Let's do more questions. I love questions. Questions are very good. And while I'm waiting for somebody might be typing a question. When you're running into trouble, your points of contact are your TAs or me. Let's try to resolve the issue internally first before contacting the Watson Analytics, because most of the issues, trust me, we can resolve them internally, right? Sometimes it's a matter of skipping an instruction, or it's because I talked about so many things tonight. So you might need to watch the recording. Trust me, you may need to watch the recording again. It takes practice, right? So let's see, do we have questions? Questions? Steve, is there anything that you would like to add?
No, I think you've done a very thorough job, and I agree with you. What you need to do is practice. That's the best way to learn it. And of course, the Big Data University course will walk you through all of the pieces also. Thanks, Elena.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for attending. No more questions. I hope everybody has a good night and enjoy it. Oh, the Big Data University course. Oh, it's on one of the slides. You would need to join. Well, it does not have to be completed in one sitting. The course takes several hours, but the test needs to be done in one sitting. Once you launch the test, you cannot go back to it. But the course itself, no. You can do it. You can do couple videos per day. You can watch couple videos per day. That's not a problem. But when you launch the test, you cannot launch it again. All right? I hope I answered question, Jay. Yes. I hope I answered your question. Right? But you do need to complete the course. You need to upload the certificate to your assignment folder. So what I would recommend you to do, the course contains several modules. Take module or 2 per day, right? Take a module or 2 per day. So that might be a good idea. Little bit watch few videos, do some practice. That's probably a good way to absorb it, right? Start early and practice, 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 right? So let's see what questions we have. If no more questions, then I guess we stop the recording, right? And everyone will have a good night, right?
Okay, thanks.
Sure. Yeah, it's still